to one of the great working, living blues legends from Wayzata, Minnesota. Let's go nice Henry's Blues House welcome to Kent DuChaine.
Well, you haven't heard me yet.
Oh, yes, we have.
Kent, that's gone so well so far. Should we cut it out now?
Fine. Excellent.
Okay. You started playing, I believe, your first instrument, which was ukulele, on the strict instructions of your father. Take us on from there. In principle, if you keep on rolling and rabbiting, I won't interrupt you, I'll just nod a lot. But I'm not nicer than I speak. Kent DuChaine, tell us about how you first encountered the blues, which I think was long after you became a ukulele player. Was it Cliff Edwards you copied? Ukulele icon.
Well, let's see. Riders in the Storm?
Ooh, yeah.
My father played guitar when he was a teenager in the Civilian Conservation Corps, which was a government program to keep people working in the Depression. And I had two brothers that were 4 and 6 years older, and my father was teaching them how to play guitar. And I wanted to learn. I was maybe 4, they were like 8 and 10 maybe. And my hands were too little to deal with the guitar, so he got the ukulele out and taught me a little bit of that old country music on the ukulele. And then my oldest brother got a 4-string guitar tenor, and that was more suitable. You didn't have to do that hard F bar chord. And that kind of got me musically going. Then I learned the clarinet because my father loved Dixieland, and he loved Pete Fountain and that old style of New Orleans style of Dixieland. And so then every night for 30 minutes I practiced that old clarinet, and I got pretty darn good at it. As what I had been about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Then I went back to the guitar. And I just started, as you do, you sit in your room after school and you just play. I had Mel Bay's 1001 guitar chords, and so I learned all that, how that guitar worked. And then the popular music of the day would have been like maybe Lovin' Spoonful and Simon and Garfunkel, along with whatever else was going on, Dion and all that stuff. That was popular music of the day. So, you get the little sheet music and you learn this and you learn that, and then all of a sudden this psychedelic music starts showing up. Cream and Jimi Hendrix, and Blue Cheer, and then here comes the Stones. And so, psychedelic music, yeah, that sounds like the way to go. A good party going on with that. And, but I knew those rockers, they weren't that clever enough to write that music, because it was just too good for their age. So I started looking at the credits. Ooh, Robert Johnson, T-Bone Walker, Lightnin' Hopkins. So off to the library, and there it is, the Robert Johnson, King of the Delta Blues Singers. Oh, Lightnin' Hopkins, T-Bone Walker, Prison Blues. What is this stuff? Armloads of records every week. Just pouring it over, practicing. And all of a sudden, here comes the Howlin' Wolf. Live and in person. It's like, oh, you got some learning to do, boy. You're gonna play this blues. And it just is carried on from there.
I think you played in a sort of rock band, I believe, some sort of guitar before you. And didn't you discover, was you first reading about the blues, wasn't it the C notes of an English guitar player called Peter Green? Or was it John Mayall? One of them.
Peter Green with John Mayall, Eric Clapton with John Mayall, You know, John Mayall was doing blues songs, and there again, once you heard the originals, it was like, that's good, John, but this is fantastic. And yeah, Cream, Crossroads, 4 Until 8, Rambling on My Mind, Steady Rolling Man, all that good stuff.
But it was really, I think, the slide guitar that got you in the beginning, was that right?
Yeah, now what was that guy in Fleetwood Mac that played slide? Was it
Jeremy,
Spence?
yeah.
And Savoy Brown. They had a slide guitar player. Was it Ken Simmons?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. All these rock groups used to come and tour in America, and we had a little place called the Union Hall, and it was a Union Hall, and every Wednesday night 3 bands would come through. 3 bands, and it would be Fleetwood Mac, it would be Big Brother and the Holding Company, it would be Mother Earth, Spirit, some of them I don't even remember all of them. Who knows how great they were or how great they became, but it was more a party and listening and learning, you know, watching the moves and all that good stuff.
Let's go back to you and your development. When did the Booker White show come into play? At what stage in your career was that?
Yeah. Well, we had a guy named Lazy Bill Lucas. He was our godfather of blues in Minneapolis. He was an old blind black piano player, and we used to go over there when we were in our teens and listen to his stories and drink his cheap beer and play music with him. And then all of a sudden, Howlin' Wolf came to town. And that was just the start of it all. 1969 for me. I had seen Howlin' Wolf on that little show Shindig with the Stones. But Howlin' Wolf was kind of kicked it off in my hometown. And then 1969 was the first year for the Ann Arbor Blues Festival. And it was just a parade of blues guys. So 69, 70, 71, I think 72, they might have skipped it. Then they moved to Canada and it fell apart.
But it was Detroit originally, wasn't it? Or near Detroit?
Well, Ann Arbor's just outside of Detroit. It could have possibly been the first year in Detroit. 1970, I went there, and it was, you know, all the guys were there. All the country blues, all the Delta blues, all the Chicago blues, West Coast blues. Johnny Winters was the only white guy there, and Bonnie Raitt was the only white woman there. The rest were black. And it was just, that was Booker White when I first came across him. And then they started coming to our hometown, Minneapolis, because when we were teenagers and we were practicing on the records, we went to the bar and said, look, we can play blues. Why don't you hire us? You couldn't drink in the bars until you were 21. We were 17, 18 years old, but you could work in the bars. So 4 nights a week, we played in this little place called The Joint, and 3 nights a week we played other spots. And the older ones, older by being 21 and older, got used to this blues that we were playing. It was terrible, but we, you know, it was real Jimmy Reed stuff, you know, real easy-going blues. And the music became popular in the bars, and then it opened the doors for all the blues guys to come and play, because they had a built-in crowd that loved blues. And here they were, the real deal. Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Willie Dixon, Freddie King, Albert King, B.B. King. On a Wednesday night, you'd have to choose between Albert Collins, B.B. King, and Freddie King. 3 different places. And it was just a heyday. Then the university saw that it was happening with the young ones, with this blues, so they went and got these guys to come up from Mississippi and Memphis. So it was Booker White, it was Big Joe Williams, it was Mississippi Fred McDowell. The list was just on and on and on every week. Free shows. It was just, wow, heaven. for this little white boy.
At what point did Kim Wilson come into the picture? Kim
Yeah.
was his fabulous Thunderbirds, of course. When did he come into the picture?
Yeah. Well, we did the Ann Arbor stuff, pilgrimages to Ann Arbor in August, playing the blues around Minneapolis. It's branching out a bit. And a friend, I went to Ohio. I played in the blues band in Ohio when I was about 18 or 19. Saw Captain Beefheart in Ohio. That was like, Ry Cooder opened up for him. Wow. And one of the guys in the band, he was kind of a, not a troublemaker, but he caused a lot of trouble. And so he bounced around a lot from band to band, and he went to California. He came back with Kim and some other boys, but they needed a bass player, so Kent DuChaine stepped in and started playing bass. And so that band started up probably about 72 or 73 maybe. And I played bass for most of the time, but I also did a half a set with the slide guitar. And Willie Dixon heard our band, and he heard that slide guitar playing. He said, "Oh, that sounds like a young Muddy Waters." I was like, "Yeah, wow, must be doing something right." And next thing we know, Willie's got two guys from Seattle that want to form a record company. So Willie hooks us up with them. They come to Minneapolis and we record. Willie hooks up Howlin, Wolf, and John Lee Hooker and Albert Collins and Margie Evans to do a big festival to help promote our band. And so that was when I got to hang out with Howlin Wolf. Wow. He was just the coolest. And so that was kind of the Kim Wilson period. And this guitar player, there was a lot of friction between him and Kim. So Kim went down to Texas and brought Jimmy Vaughn up to play in the band. So we had two guitar players and they were kind of battling it out, and you could feel the tension with it all. And it just fell apart. Kim split, went to Texas, started the Thunderbirds, and that was the end of that.
But didn't you, when you were with Kim, didn't you record with people like Boogie Woogie Red?
Yeah, we backed up Boogie Woogie Red. Oh man. I had a girlfriend named Candy, and she was just stunning. And she was standing in front, smiling, and Boogie's playing. He stops, he reaches in his pocket, he gets a quarter out, and he flips it to her. He says, "What's your name, honey?" She says, "Candy." He says, "Well, Candy, I'm the Candy Rapper." He was a character. Yeah. Boogie Woogie Red, Eddie Burns, Fenton Robinson, Smothers.
Did Eddie Burns play guitar or harmonica?
He played guitar.
He's a great harmonica player.
Oh, okay.
Tremendous.
Luther Tucker came and lived with us for about 3-4 months, played in our band. He was a real inspiration.
Did you play with someone? Hubert Sumlin?
Hubert, yeah. I did shows with Hubert after Wolf died, but Hubert joined our band on stage at that festival I was telling you about that Willie put together. I remember going and sitting in the stadium stands with Wolf. Just had to go up and meet him. "Hey, Wolf, can I shake your hand?" And it was like a bear paw. "Nice to meet you." And I said, "Thanks, Wolf, for letting Hubert, join our band. He said he would join us on stage later." This was during the sound check time period. And Wolf says, "If that boy wants to play for free, he's a fool." I just kind of backed up a little bit. So he joined us that evening on stage, and then we went up to Wolf's room and hung out with him, and darned if it wasn't like 3 months later he passed away. Yeah, Freddie King went, and then Wolf. Yeah. And I did some shows with Hubert and Big Walter Horton. Wow, that was cool, man. And like I was telling you about Clifton and Cleveland Chenier. Oh, the first time I heard them live, I went out and I bought me an accordion. I was going to figure out how to, because that music was so infectious. That Zydeco music, yeah, as you know. Yeah.
It's very interesting, your background. At what point, I mean, I first got to know you through your relationship with Johnny Shines. That was stunning. I don't know how you found him, I'd like you to tell us, but I think you played with him for about 3 years. Just tell the folks out there, because you know this, because you were there. You worked with him for 3 years, more than 200 shows. And Johnny Shines was one of the real greats, wasn't he? I think so.
Real deal. Johnny.
Tell us about you and Johnny and you.
Well, I'll talk about him when I'm performing a bit, but as you probably know, he was the traveling companion of Robert Johnson. And I first saw him in 1970 at the Ann Arbor Blues Fest, him and Robert Lockwood. They introduced him as the traveling companion of Robert Johnson, and I had been poring over those records, you know, for a few years, trying to figure that out. And he did. He sounded just like Robert. It was so close to what I was feeling from it. And then I went home and I tried to find the recordings by him, and there was only 3 or 4 recordings on a compilation album of early Chicago blues. I got this book, Sam Charter's Country Blues. It had Robert Johnson in there, like one page, but it mentioned Johnny Shines, and so I knew there was a connection. Then he came and he played this little coffee house at the university in Minnesota, and I had earlier done a couple of shows with Book of White there, where I got to open up for him. We'll talk about that some more when I got my guitar on. But I couldn't get close to him, and then he kind of faded from the scene. And I moved to the South, started kicking around Alabama, playing shows, and I'd go home in the summer to visit my family, do a few shows, do a little fishing up in the north. And I had all the Living Blues magazines from like the very first. And I would just pour through them while I was hanging out in my house. And I saw that Johnny Shines doing a festival in Eutaw, Alabama, near to where he lives. And I went, okay, so when I went back to the South, I found out he lived in this one particular town, Tuscaloosa. I went over, and it's a big long story we'll do with the guitar. But we rambled for 3 years, played a couple hundred shows. Johnny had a stroke, so he couldn't hold the strings down real well, but he could still use the slide. He had that powerful vibrato in his voice, and it was just cool hanging out with this guy. The word got out Johnny was on the scene, so all of a sudden all these festivals started coming our way. And the Smithsonian Festival did the Robert Johnson, the 25th anniversary Smithsonian Folklife Festival, the Roots of Rhythm and Blues, the Robert Johnson era. And Worth Long, one of the folklorists, dug out all these old Mississippi players that nobody knew about to come and be a part of the festival. Fife and drum band, and Lonnie Pitchford playing the diddley bow, and then he got Robert Lockwood, Johnny Shines, Henry Townsend, Honeyboy Edwards, 4 guys that were connected with Robert Johnson. And so it was seminars and music every day, and a little concert in the evening for about 10 days. Alan Lomax showed up and everybody was, you know, and I was like, yeah, how you doing? It was just wonderful hanging with those guys. And we did some recording. Sony recorded the whole festival in conjunction with Columbia on their Folkways. And it got released and it got nominated for a Grammy. And then Johnny died. And on the recording, they dedicated the recording to the memory of Johnny Shine. It didn't win the Grammy. Dr. John won that year. And then there was a whole bunch of royalty issues. Steve Levere got involved with executive interests in the Robert Johnson thing, and so Sony pulled it. And you're lucky if you can find any copies of it. It's just a shame. The old blues guys, they just get beat up all the time.
Oh, always did. I gotta tell you, Johnny Shine's always a bit of an obscure figure to us folk in Europe. We all knew about him. That's what it was like. Was he drunk? Was he straight? Was he serious? Was he funny? Was he difficult?
Well,
Something about it.
some of you may have seen him. He toured with Willie Dixon and the Blues All-Stars here in the 60s.
That was the whole Slipman tour, wasn't it? That went around. That's right, yeah.
And he did some solo tours. I've talked with people that saw him in different little
Well,
places.
you toured me. You did more than 200 shows then. Was he easy to be with?
He was the most calmest influence on me. I mean, because here I am taking care of this old guy, and I was worried when I first offered to go and work with him, because I've seen a lot of drunk old bluesmen, and I did not want to have to deal with that. I was real nervous about it, and I found out that he had quit drinking. He said he woke up one morning in his Jeep and he had a bottle of whiskey in one hand and his gun in the other. And he woke up and he looked down and that was it for him. He said he quit. And he did, but there was one night when some friends of mine, I got really angry with them. They kept pushing it at him, pushing it at him, pushing it at him. This little backwoods festival we were playing in. Man, he got hammered that night. And I was like, oh no. And it was one slow song after another. But he was calm. He was very calm and very quiet. You know, he'd done everything. He'd seen it all. He'd been through all the trouble. And he was just such a calming effect on me, because I'm like, I gotta take care of this guy, I gotta get this gig, I gotta do this, I gotta drive, blah, blah, blah. Something would go wrong with the beat up old motorhome, we'd be running in, and I'd be panicking, and he'd be just, you know.
Tell us a little bit about your current traveling companion, who you've been with for many years.
That would be Led Bessie. My steel guitar, Led Bessie, yeah, she's, we've been together for 42 years now.
And she's a little older than you.
Yeah, there's every now and then somebody says, "Oh, did you get her new?" She'll be 86 years old on the new year. And I saw Son House. He was playing one. I saw Book of White. He was playing one. I said, "Man, I'm playing slide guitar. I got to get me a steel guitar." So the only way you could really look was in the newspaper, in the Wanted's music section, or go into the music stores, or word of mouth. You couldn't find one. You just couldn't. It took me 10 years to find one. But about 1970, Book of White was coming to town, and I begged the promoter to give me the opening act, and so I got to open up 2 shows for Book of White at the university. And I got backstage, and I talked him into letting me fondle and stroke his guitar. I was just fell in love. 14 fret neck, old National Duolian. And, well, as you maybe know, Book of White's guitar went on the auction block in April, what, 110,000 pounds?
Look after it.
She looks after me, I'm just driving her around. And I call her Led Bessie, after Lead Belly and Bessie Smith. 10,000 shows, 3 million miles, 4.5 ex-wives. And hopefully more to come.
So where do you live now, Kent?
When I'm off the road, I built me a little house on the banks of Lake Eufaula on the border of Alabama and Georgia. just south of Highway 82, the Blues Highway. Yeah, 16 years I've been working at it, and usually when I'm playing I invite everybody to come for a visit, and I always tell folks that you paid for it, and I built it, so I call it the house the Brits built. I always tell folks that the key's under the electric box if I'm not home. The moonshine's sitting on the counter. Big lake right there, dirt road, dead end.
But you're never there. You seem to be eternally on the road. Is that right?
I'm there about 6 or 7 months of a year. I lived on the road my whole life. Started playing that music when I was a kid. Started rambling around with the music. Had different vehicles that I lived in. And I never had a phone, or never had an address. I was like really wowed when voicemail came in. I could put my money in a little phone box and get messages. So I rambled all across North America for decades. And then, but I was always looking for that spot that I could call home, and I found this little place on Lake Eufaula and built a big house. Built it all myself. I bought all this wood that they were tearing down from a house, a big fancy house, and it was all these big Douglas fir beams. So I planed the wood and I pulled all the nails for months and months and months and months. Had a huge stack of wood. I just built this big house. The house the Ritz built. Come and see it.
Well, this has been fascinating. I must ask you another question, which I'm sure most people don't know the answer to. Well, tell us what the very early primitive guitar you mentioned earlier on, a diddley bow. What exactly is a diddley bow?
Well, Lonnie Pitchford kind of reintroduced the diddley bow. He made diddley bows in Mississippi. It's just a one-string guitar, or a one-string instrument. And he had it look like a little gourd kind of thing at the bottom. Just a pole and one tuning thing and just one string. And he could really get going with that thing. And I met him at the Smithsonian Fest. And we kind of became kind of soul brothers, and we really connected because we both had this love of the blues. He was being taught to play guitar by Robert Lockwood. And so he was, in my mind, the future of carrying the tradition on. I was trying to help with that too, because I didn't want to lose that old style that we all love. And Lonnie was right there. And if I'm not mistaken, they were going to use him as a Robert Johnson character, and they were going to do and he ended up shooting himself by accident, messing around with his gun somehow. That was it. We lost him. But he did the diddley bow, and apparently, I was told that they used to drive a nail in a barn or a barn door, and then they'd string a nailing wire to another nail, and they'd stick a pop bottle or some sort of bottle in there for a bridge, and then boom, 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 and then they'd slide on it. And the reverberation, it was quite loud because of it being like in a barn.
Fred Reef from Detroit, who you probably know.
Who?
Fred Reef.
Fred Reef.
From Detroit?
No, I don't know if I know him.
He used to handle Lightning Slim and Whispering Smith, those guys. He said it didn't work with the pop bottle. It had to be a whiskey bottle.
Okay. Well, he probably know. I wouldn't know. I never tried it, but...
Kent DuChaine, the real legend of the blues, is wonderful to talk to you. It's going even better, I'm sure, to listen to you. I hope you're all as thrilled as I am to have Kent DuChaine in the house. Please, welcome him.